Hello and welcome to Films and That. My name is Rob Turnbull.
And my name's Sam Hall.
And today we are looking at Memories of Murder by Bong Joon-Ho. Memories of Murder follows the true story of two detectives trying to solve the case of Korea's first serial killer. This review contains spoilers.
It's weird, isn't it, to think it's the first serial killer?
Well, yeah, because I think, bizarrely, we're kind of spoilt for having lots of people like Jack the Ripper and that. I think spoilt's the wrong word, but...
Fred West. Anyway, let's not list all the serial killers of England.
But that is a point in the film, is that they're woefully under-equipped to deal with it.
Yeah, so. almost like as if they didn't think it could something that ever happened, isn't it? It's almost implied that crime is just something they deal with every day, and they know how to deal with it, and they don't need any thought put into it whatsoever. You know, they've already worked out who the criminal is, as far as they're concerned. Yeah, which is what the problem is. You know,
it doesn't even matter if that person actually committed the crime a lot of the time. They've got him, so it's secure. Yeah.
Yes.
So our protagonist is Detective Park, who is a bit of an arsehole.
Arsehole and an idiot as well.
And an idiot.
Almost lovable idiot, you know.
Yeah, well, he does want to catch the killers, but he thinks he has this kind of supernatural or kind of otherworldly kind of ability to know who killed these people or committed these crimes. He thinks he just knows these people. There's one point when he's trying to control a crime scene, and everyone's just standing around, just watching like it's some kind of spectator thing, and they find a footprint on the floor, and Park kind of circles it, you know, to keep it as evidence. And there's a tractor that just comes through and just runs over the footprint.
Yeah, there's a lot of comedy in this film, but we'll get back to that. Everything about the attitude to the case, it's not necessarily that they don't care, it's just that they just they are not equipped at all. They're not the right people to be involved in it.
아이 뭐 감식반도 안 오고 완전 지금 현장 보증 개판이야 지금. 에헤이 그 노인네 그 참.
Everyone seems incompetent in this film. You know, even Park is, you know, mocking up evidence because of the tractor going through it. He gets a footprint, he gets a shoe from the person he thinks that killed the woman, and he puts it in the mud and takes a picture and goes, "Yeah, there's evidence you were there." Yeah. He's just faked it all, just because he doesn't have any evidence, and he gets a bit desperate. But once they realise that this is a serial murder, then they bring in another detective from the city who helps them, doesn't he? Detective Seo.
Seo, yeah, or Seo. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but yeah, he's the antidote.
He's more by the book. You know, this kind of plot is very TV. You know, Sunday afternoon. You know, these cops don't get on, but they have to learn to work together to solve the case. So, like, where a film has a kind of a 3-act structure and character arcs throughout, this had more scenes that were interesting, and it went from having a comedy scene to quite a dramatic scene where there's a murder, and more like how you'd write for TV, I thought.
I think it's just his style. It's executed incredibly. It's one of these films that is very accessible to wide audiences, but has all that kind of intellectual stuff, you know, that commitment to that kind of higher level of thinking littered throughout, that really brings it out to be quite, you know, a satisfying conclusion.
And what they do, because of this police brutality, is just so normal. They end up just torturing any suspect that comes in.
So yeah, to the point where they admit it.
This is when my favourite character enters the scene.
I'm convinced he's a stuntman.
Yeah.
Because all his actions, like there's one scene when he's kicked down the stairs by his superior, and the way he does it, it's like almost if a normal actor would do that, they might break their neck. Yeah. You know, but he does it so professionally. I'm convinced that he was probably a stuntman in previous life or something, you know. And
he loves just drop kicking people. That is his character trait, isn't it? He loves kicking people. He's even got like his own little kind of padding thing for his boot, so it doesn't leave any scratches. And it's done in a comedic fashion, which is quite odd because it's a horrific thing.
I think Park is the strongest comedy element to the film. There's so many lines, particularly you notice there's no pubic hair at the scene.
Yeah,
he must have shaved down there. Yeah. And then there's a line he says, you know, like for example, a Buddhist monk. It's the perfect crime. And then Inspector Cho comes along and says, well, the temple's only next door, should we start there?
Yeah.
You know?
That is just the mentality of these people. They just jump at any little thing that they can grasp and then just run with it, and then that's how it gets out of control for them.
And then Detective Seo, who comes in from Seoul, the city, he walks all over them. He even notices that there's another victim that the other two characters hadn't seen yet.
살해된 여자가 하나 더 있어요. 아직 시체가 안 나와서 그렇지.
Well, there's one thing I was reading up on about ensemble staging.
Yeah.
Which is a technique that Bong uses.
I know what you mean, actually, because there's an interesting scene when all four of the main characters are drinking, but they're sat around the table and the sergeant's in the middle, but he's asleep at that point.
Yeah.
The two main characters are either side, and then Cho is just in the background, just falling around. But he's doing that throughout the scene.
Yeah, the idea of these scenes is rather than cut to what's happening, everything you need to know in the story is happening within the frame in one shot. In
lots of depth as well, because although the sergeant is asleep, halfway through the scene he wakes up and then he becomes the principal focus of that scene. So you're right, there's no like reverse shot in that, it's just one scene.
It adds to the comedy aspects and the serious aspects. It really draws you into when those changes happen, when you're going from a comedic aspect to a more serious one. It's a great transition, because you're in the moment, because things are of the moment. You could be having a laugh and then find out that Miriam's dead. Who's Miriam? You know what I mean?
Have you ever watched a scene when you can tell what's going to happen by the way it's staged? So if there's like someone in the foreground and there's an empty doorway, and you know someone's going to come in through that doorway, so you're kind of preempting it and you're expecting it. Whereas in this, because it's not like that, there's certain things that happen that you really take you by surprise. Like
they're all sat around a table eating, and then suddenly a cupboard flops open and he's sleeping inside.
Yeah, he just falls out.
Yeah.
I really like that bit in that scene when he's giving him some trainers or something.
Well, that's the same scene.
Yeah, it's the same scene. Yeah, because I got you some Nikes, and then thingy, what's his name, So just goes Nike. These say nice on them.
나이키가 아니고 나이스구만. 나이스.
Yeah, there's so much. There's a lot of good comedy in this, but it's really well paced, and especially considering that it's an incredibly serious subject matter, which all comes sort of crashing onto you later on when you get a particularly upsetting murder, which affects the characters.
The film, for me, is about people getting desperate. They want to solve these crimes. They want to believe that these people killed these people. And it's all about being corrupted by that and letting go, I think. So where Park and Cho start off convincing themselves that these people are criminals and becoming quite desperate enough to believe that. So, who does everything by the book, and he needs evidence, he needs proof that these people are the killers. He becomes more and more desperate. He becomes more and more like they are. That's
one of the really satisfying things, isn't it? The way they Park and Seo exchange methods.
Yeah.
Park has this bizarre. He talks about shamanism. Yeah, and like you said, like looking in people's eyes, which is also actually part. I think is part of it, though. A part of the point of the film is that. Looking into people's eyes and making your own mind up.
So convinced that it's him because it matches everything, but he can't prove it. So he really should let him go, but he just can't bring himself to do that.
Yeah,
and that's why he turns to violence, like what Park did before. Park's more willing to accept when he's wrong, really, I think. So when things have been disproved, he's more willing to step back and go, we need to let this person go.
There is, there's that. They're sort of learning to become each other's partners, and there's one point where Park is just so pissed off at Seo's attitude of just sort of dismissing their evidence that they've already come up with, and all the work they've done. Then he attacks Seo, but then later on, he puts his list of suspects in the bin and says, "You're right." There's definitely an arc for Park's character, more so than than any of the other characters.
그만해라 이제.
Talk about the ending.
Okay. After they let the suspect go.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that moment of it's revealed that they never solved the case, essentially. We flash forward 10, 15 years later. South Korea now, it's a full democratic republic again. Capitalism is the big thing. This is literally translated with Park's character now being a parent who sells products. He's no longer a policeman. And he just happens to be passing the crime scene where he found the first body. And he gets approached by a young girl. I was hoping you'd carry on.
Okay, yeah, he gets approached by a young girl who says she saw someone else doing the same thing earlier. And Park then realises, because when he discovered that first body, it was only him there. So the only other person that would have known that body was there would have been the killer. And he's asking the girl, what did he look like?
Yeah.
And she's just like, you look plain, kind of unremarkable.
Yeah, that's the... I kind of feel at that point they're sort of almost saying he had no chance. They're just some things just never going to be solved. The other aspect is that he looks at the camera, and he says, over to you, audience.
Yeah.
It is actually quite a powerful scene.
It does stay with you, this film. It's not a film that you think is going to stay with you because it's so almost cliche plot line.
Almost like an 80s cop film at some points.
It is, yeah. But just the way it's crafted, it just really makes something sticks with you. And I can't quite grasp what that is. And I think that's why a lot of reviews that I've read do struggle to kind of characterize it, because there is something there that is quite interesting, but you can't really kind of grasp what it is. I don't know.
This is indicative of all of Bong's films that I've seen. His films really resonate with you.
So Sam, what did you think of Memories of Murder?
Well, I loved it. I was really excited, about doing this review and looking forward to watching it again. The genre is just so overdone, that going into it, you just kind of think, well, what more am I going to see? What is another murder mystery going to add to my life? And yet it still manages to achieve that.
I wasn't expecting much, but it really kind of came through for me, this film. It's really funny, for one thing. It's really entertaining. You like the characters, even though they're horrible people, or their methods are horrible. You do kind of get behind them, because they are trying to solve a case at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, that's it for this time on Films and That. Thanks for watching and subscribing. We'll see you next time.
Ciao.